Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 5. Let's check it out and see what comes out of my face. And then you can check it out, what I said while I was checking it out.
Me too. But about everything else.
Feeling okay.
Just okay?
Yeah.
Is there anything that's been on your mind?
You need to show your freckles more.
You're such a nut.
I like them.
They're out today.
I know.
Okay, so that was flirty and nice, complimentary at the very least, I think. And also I'm reminded of how much it is like pulling teeth when you're talking to him. Where does that phrase come from? I don't know. If you have a teenager in your extended family, you know, like a nephew or something, you know how these conversations go. Not all the time, of course, but sometimes where you're just like, so, how are things? I don't know. How's school? It's okay. It's kind of, you know, she's really trying hard to engage. But yeah, he did say something complimentary, so maybe they're on the mend?
I like them.
They're out today.
I know.
That's it.
Okay, she says it with a smile, but that is a lob across the plate for him to take a swing. And JP, in all of your mind, in all of your soul, and all of your heart, is there anything nice that you can say? I'm going to take a guess and say that he's going to drop the ball or not take a swing.
That's been on your mind?
You need to show your freckles more.
You're such a nut.
I like them.
They're out today.
I know.
That's it. You're a nut.
Okay, so maybe, you know, they have interacted more than we've seen them, but they haven't interacted much by this point, at least in person. And she lobs it over the plate, and he is quiet and laughs. And basic, you know, is that saying like a joke? Like, yeah, that's all I like about you. Nah, I'm just joshing you. But you just think you would say something, particularly in this circumstance, not only just on your honeymoon, or I guess it would be their engagement trip, vacation. You know, not only that, but also the cameras are there. So you just think maybe I should say something nice for them. And he just doesn't. I suspect that he is terrified and has, you know, I've already been over my hypotheses. You know, it's hard to know because he doesn't really give us much to work with, but I think that's the most likely.
I'm just thinking, I guess I just felt more comfortable in the pods because I'm talking to a wall.
Okay, good. So the paradox for folks who are very uncomfortable and have a schema that says that they're worthless or that they're stupid or they're constantly making a fool out of themselves or something, is that in order for them to talk about it or to alleviate other people's misgivings about the way that they come across, they have to be able to express themselves. And so it's a catch-22. They're terrified of expressing themselves, and as they refrain from expressing themselves because they're terrified, the only way to get the ball rolling so that you could build some trust and maybe get an ally, some support for your social anxiety or whatever, you have to express yourself. But you can't express yourself, you know. So I think we're kind of seeing a version of that where he's just like, it's a little bit more extending himself. He's like, I'm not comfortable in person. He's saying it with a smile, but I think deep down he's like screaming from the bottom of a pit of just like, I'm sorry, there's something broken about me. Now, there's nothing broken about him in all likelihood. It's just someone made him feel broken. So I think that's what we're seeing. But hallelujah that he was able to say that to her at the very least, instead of being a dick like what he does often on camera, like the things that we've seen. So I think this might be, this has potential of like getting the ball rolling. Now, I wonder for her if she's like, well, too little too late, pal, or I don't know if I want to deal with, you know, if you can't, I don't know what to do about that. Is there something that we can do? What's the solution here? Because this isn't working. Or if for Theyre, she's done. I wouldn't be surprised. I think for a lot of these couples staying together on Love is Blind, a lot depends on that first impression, that first 24 hours. You know, think Zenab and Cole and those kind of folks. And it'd be hard to pull out of that nosedive, right? I think we've seen other couples that managed, but I don't know. I'm just trying to think how this would work. How much therapy would be required for him? But maybe if he can return to some of that comfort level in person, then Theyre likes that sort of person, or him, that version of him. Because, you know, he wasn't super expressive in the pods, but a lot more than this.
Now you're talking to a face, a human.
Pretty face.
Pretty face. That was another compliment. He's trying in his way. That was nice.
Oh, don't blame yourself, but
But it's kind of my fault.
you've dated in the real world before, yes.
Yeah.
You've interacted with other humans in person, right? I mean, I feel really bad for him. I've said this before. If they break up, Theyre will be fine in the future. She'll meet someone, and in all likelihood, things will just go the way they normally do for people. But for JP, I don't have that prognosis, given what we've seen. And not only just his awkwardness, I think there's a number of things going on for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he had some odd conspiracy theories rattling around in his head that are a product of just a general rage that he feels. I don't know that. I don't want to stereotype him, but I wouldn't. There's some minor indications of that, like, I don't know, maybe some sort of hyper toxic masculinity problems. It's not uncommon for folks to have that, but some of the things that he said that seem to, I don't know, they give me that I don't know. I'm probably making stuff up.
A human being, you know.
Yeah.
Woo!
I hope that we can go back to Houston and work on things and see how living together works, and hopefully grow and become a stronger couple.
Okay. Because up until a certain point, there was a question as to whether or not he hated her or thought she was disgusting or something. Because the way he was treating her, that was an option, because there wasn't anything like this. So at the very least, what he's saying, we could cross that off the list. We don't know. This all is within that hypothesis that I have, that he is just terrified and is positive that he is on the cusp of being rejected, and that even when she's being nice and trying to talk to him and kiss him, that she's just doing it because she wants to be nice, and surely she's going to leave him at some point. So my strategy is to shut down and not extend myself and not be vulnerable and just brace myself for the inevitable rejection. And but, you know, the fact that he's saying those things, I think, indicates that he's feeling a little bit more safety, if that hypothesis is somewhere in the ballpark.
Go back to Houston and work on things and see how living together works, and hopefully grow and become a stronger couple.
Fears.
That you're just gonna leave.
Boom. Yeah, who knows? Maybe he's just saying that, but yeah, I think that really just is solidly within the hypothesis that I've been developing. Yeah, he's afraid that she's just going to leave, and it's such a tragedy for folks like this, that because they're so afraid, and because they believe that rejection will happen much more likely than it actually will because of their past experiences. Maybe rejection, but also maybe just people telling him that he's rejectable or he's nothing or worthless or something. But at any rate, some sort of belief about some schema about that. And it's just such a tragedy, because when you believe that deep down, you have to have a way of coping with it. And one of the ways to cope with it is to do what he's doing, which of course causes people to reject him. And then more rejection and more reason to believe that you're rejectable, and more reason to engage in whatever it is he's doing. I mean, he's 30, so I'm going to take a guess and say that in his adult life, how, whatever happened to him as a child probably wasn't around when he was an adult, right? Moving out of the house or whatever. And he was able to engineer his own life. And yet, given that he was able to engineer his own life, he recreated the circumstances upon which he would be rejected. And then by the time he's 30, he could be worse off than when he was 18. That's one of the tragedies of childhood traumas, relational traumas, is that you get traumatized, it's horrible, and then you emerge into the world and you have power, you have privilege, you can do what you want. You're no longer underneath the thumb of the abuser in all likelihood. And yet, because of lack of awareness and lack of therapy, lack of access, the individual proceeds to recreate all these relationships. And by the time they're 30, they're worse off than when they were 18, even though they're no longer around the abusive person, because they've recreated the relationship so effectively, completely out of their awareness. So who knows what his journey has been.
But I'm not gonna just leave. Give it a little more time. See if it changes.
Okay, so she says, well, I'm not going to just leave. I mean, that's not super encouraging to him, I'm thinking. And then she's like, well, we'll see if it changes. And I totally get where she's coming from. And I hope that he can hear that for what it is, which is that there's a possibility. But he might hear, oh, see, she's going to leave me. I don't know what he's hearing.
Give it a little more time. See if it changes.
Don't give up on me.
Try not to.
Okay, so I'm so glad that at least they're speaking explicitly about it. And I hope JP can find safe. Maybe it was just an initial phase, a couple days, where he's terrified and he can return to being whatever sort of version he was in the pods, which from my memory, he was a sweet individual. So sounds like, I mean, it feels familiar, this tone of voice that he's having right now. It feels like it's getting into, it was like a completely different person when he saw her in person. And I feel like I remember this mode.
How'd you feel about today?
Today was fun.
Yeah?
Yeah. How did you feel about today?
I just don't think we're where we should be.
Okay. I wonder what she's talking about. Maybe she'll elaborate, but I wonder if, although things aren't horrible, like they were on the beach when he was being a dick, he was snapping at her seemingly from the edit. I wonder if she's thinking, well, he wasn't doing that, but we're still, I don't feel connected. I don't feel like we're gelling. I see the other couples, they're gelling and we're not gelling.
Because you didn't get over the awkward part.
Because it's still awkward.
Okay. All right. I mean, I don't imagine JP is going to manage well here because, if my hypothesis is somewhere near the mark, this will trigger him. And even on a good day, he has a hard time managing conversations like this. So her attitude is showing, which I think is totally fair. And I can't imagine this going well for him. I'm gonna take a guess, and so I think we could see two possibilities. One is that he'll shut down and just be like, oh, I don't know, and he'll just become silent again until the altar, or he'll snap at her and criticize her. So we've seen that mode that he goes into. So yeah, it doesn't bode well.
Didn't get over the awkward part.
Because it's still awkward.
Because you harped on the awkward part and you didn't get past it. I don't think you've gotten past it.
He's saying because it's still awkward because you harped on the awkward part. Yeah, and I think this is getting back to that catch-22 I was talking about, where he is awkward, and then as he emerges out of awkwardness, he's already caused problems, and so when she is like, we've been awkward lately, as he finally starts to not be kind of awkward, that gives her a chance to be like, we need to talk about how awkward it is. Because when it was really awkward, she couldn't bring it up because he didn't want to talk about anything. But now that he's emerging, and then she says something, and then that concerns him or worries him or makes him feel more insecure and more awkward. And he just wants her to be fine with the whole thing. And she's thinking, at the very least, this is awkward and completely dysfunctional as a relationship. I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall. But at worst, this could mean that you don't like me or something's going on, because where's the expression of love? You don't reach out to me. You don't try to engage with me. You treat me like I don't matter, like you don't want me around.
You harped on the awkward part and you didn't get past it. I don't think you've gotten past it.
Maybe I haven't. We'll go with that.
You've had one foot out the door this whole time.
I don't think our emotional...
Wait, what did you say?
You've had one foot out the door this whole time.
You've had one foot out the door this whole time. Yeah. It's hard to imagine that my hypothesis is not near the mark, given what he keeps saying. Now, for her, she could be thinking, what are you talking about? My mind, soul, spirit, everything was in it to win it. And then you have just been constantly rejecting me and not participating and not trying and giving me the cold shoulder. And so if I have one foot out now, I guess if that's true, it's because you're pushing me out the door. But from his standpoint, because of his relational traumas, he assumes that she has one foot out the door. This is a very common schema that will end up in therapy, honestly. Men don't usually show up in therapy with this because men are socialized in a very toxic manner to try to do things on their own and to not ask for help and to talk about feelings as a feminine thing, which it's a human thing. Anyway, but a lot of women with this schema will show up in therapy. A lot of men too, but a lot of people. Point is that when you are abandoned or betrayed or rejected, you early in life, you just have this assumption over time that it's like, the way that schemas work, the way that interjects work, object relations, all this kind of stuff, is that we have a lot of experiences growing up. We've all been rejected. We've all been betrayed. We've all been abandoned as children. But it's the intensity and the chronic nature of these experiences that will result in us having interjects or schemas that will be carried through the rest of our lives or will, persist into adulthood and will plague us unconsciously. And so for a lot of people, when they go through this kind of abandonment and it's intense enough and chronic enough, frequent enough, at first they're thinking, ooh, that hurt, or I don't like being abandoned. And they might be signaling like, don't abandon me or don't reject me, or they might cry and be like, that hurts my feelings. But after a while, it just becomes so repetitive and so frequent and so intense that the child turns a corner. And they decide, this is mostly subconscious, they decide that, it must be the way the world works, or it must be me, or it must be the way all relationships are. This is just the way that it is. I need to stop fighting and I need to start accepting. Again, a lot of this is out of the conscious mind. And a lot of this is happening neurologically because the child is developing neurologically. And a lot of what determines our neurology has to do with our experiences. Language, for example. We're not born with the ability. I wasn't born with the ability to speak English. I was born with an open sponge to language that was filled with English and the particular syntax and the particular accent that I have. And so I absorb that. And we also absorb how relationships work and what sort of person we are, our identity, how do we fit in things. And so for children that are in that situation, eventually they turn this corner and they just say, this is the way that it is. I am rejectable and rejection will always happen. That's the default. And it's just a matter of time. And so people will walk through life as adults always just assuming that rejection is right around the corner and or that no one will ever love them for who they really are. They have to constantly act like someone else, or they have to be a pleaser. They have to give more than they get just to retain relationships. I'm quite positive there's a number of you that are like, ooh, that's me, or you have heard me talk about this before, or you have gone through your own therapy and know this about yourself. It's a fairly common schema that people have. And for some people, one of the ways that they will deal with it is they will just shut down completely and just surrender. You hear me talk about the different schema, defense modes. One is to surrender, one's to avoid, one's to overcompensate. I'll start with the overcompensate. If with that, there's a lot of different things one might do, but one thing they might do is they might say, I don't need relationships, and they might engage in relationships and reject people before they can be rejected. Or they might also pursue a lot and say, hey, you can't leave me. They might even become abusive. This schema can absolutely lead to physical abuse and gaslighting to try to retain that attachment figure. But, far short of that, there might be a lot of criticism of like, you never text me back. You're always rejecting me. What's wrong with you? You're always hurting me that you don't give me more attention, or, it wouldn't be worded that way, but that kind of fighting for a relationship, that's overcompensating. You're not going to go down without a fight. That's what overcompensating basically means. Avoiding is avoiding relationships, that sort of thing. There's a lot of avoidance of your feelings, but it's, it's still there. And then to surrender is to just say, yep, it's going to happen. Why fight it? There's no point. It just is what it is. I'm rejectable, or the world is rejecting, and why fight? It just causes more problems to fight, so I'm just going to do that. And he is maybe a combination of the avoidance and of the surrender, where he just figures, yep, it's going to happen. As soon as he met her in person, when the stakes were real, because in the pods, he might have felt like they weren't, very real, or it was so outside of the norm that he could break free of his pattern. Particularly the way that he thinks. But anyway, so he meets in person, and it's like, oh, and maybe because she is conventionally attractive, that he's just like, oh, it's over. She has other options. Other women that look like her wouldn't even give me the time of day. So, who knows what he's thinking. But anyway, so it becomes more intense, and he's just like, yeah, it's over. I surrender. I'm not even going to fight. He had that kind of look to it, right? Like he wasn't even, because you'd think if he was worried about that, he'd be like, ooh, let's make sure that she likes me. I'm going to try to amp up my charm or something. But it looks like he just gave up, like as soon as they met, particularly when they met up in person on vacation. He's just like, And then avoiding is avoiding expressing, avoiding putting himself out there, because it hurts to do that. So you see those two schema modes or schema defense patterns that he engages in. So it looks like you've had one foot out the door this whole time. Now to her, and maybe many in the audience, it might seem like what he's doing is playing a game, that he's just trying to blame her. He's just trying to get out of taking responsibility. And, that's one possibility, but I think he actually believed this, and he is coming from that place the entire time. All right, well, that is it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.